right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jeff Ramey with my co-host Eugene Collins, and welcome to the latest episode of Neck Up Live. And we have the pleasure of having Mr. Brett Roberts as our guest tonight. Brett is a 1988 graduate of South Webster High School. After high school, he was a two-sport star athlete at Morehead State, playing baseball and basketball. He was a 1992 NCAA scoring champion. I think he averaged 28.1 points per game. Was a 1992 NBA draft pick by the Sacramento Kings. Brett was also drafted by the Cincinnati Reds out of high school in 1988 in the 33rd round. Did not sign, decided to go to college. And in 1991, he was a fourth-round draft pick of the Minnesota Twins. So, Brett, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you very much, Jeff. Honored to be here. Talking to you and you and Gene, and then just honored to be here, man. I've known you guys for a lot of years, and just honored to be on the show. Thank you.
All right. So, Brett, you're currently the principal at South Webster. You have been a fixture in that community for your whole life, basically. So I always like to start out, I like to hear your backstory. What was it like growing up in South Webster? Very close-knit community.
Yep.
Just tell us a little bit about your childhood and maybe some of the people who had the biggest impact on your life and in sports as well.
Yeah, kind of growing up in South Webster, obviously, it's the epitome of takes a village to raise a child, and South Webster is probably the epitome of that, just because it's such a small, close-knit community. I was very fortunate. I got great parents, Joe and Judy Roberts. I had great parents growing up. We grew up right beside my aunt and uncle and all their kids. They had 4 kids. We were all really close in age. We all played sports together, loved each other, fought with each other, that whole kind of thing, the whole 9 yards there whenever you're with your family. And then just, growing up, it was a small town, no red lights. You've been out here before. Gene, you both have been out to South Webster before. It's really, really small.
Yeah.
At that time when we were young, gosh, we had a community pool, almost like Portsmouth had Dreamland. We had a community pool here in South Webster. All the kids hung out there in the summertime. Everybody knew each other. Everybody kept their doors unlocked. You just walked the streets and you knew everybody. You waved hello, and they call you by name. You call them by name. It was just a great place to grow up, to be honest with you. Very, very fortunate. Sports, just did the whole thing, Little League in the summertime and baseball or basketball through the winter. We don't have any football out here, so never did any of that in the fall, of course. And we never had soccer in the fall either. Until my senior year. That was the first year South Webster ever had a soccer team, 1988. And but man, just growing up, man, I was lucky. My dad was every kid kind of plays for their dad in Little League a lot, and my dad was very active. He'd coach. He knew a lot about the game. He coached me and my brother, our team. Had some success with that. I liked it. With baseball, basketball was a lot of the same things. My dad was pretty knowledgeable about being able to pass some skill and know what to work on, practice, what to do. Playing basketball, my mom was always just a huge supporter, being there behind the scenes. I grew a lot. I was a lot bigger than the kids. I really took off my 8th grade years whenever I really shot up, 8th grade year to freshman year, but. I just had some talent. I threw the ball hard in baseball. I could always throw the ball hard. God blessed me with a good right arm, and I was able to throw it. I had a knack for shooting a basketball. I love to shoot basketball, and I'd just be out there on the court. It's kind of cliche at times, but everybody always talks about how hard they worked and what they did whenever they were kids. But when we were kids, everybody was outside. Everybody played outside. We hung out at the pool outside in the summertime, but when we played basketball, it was outside. It was never in the gym. So we was outside playing on the concrete courts, or somebody would have a gravel driveway. We'd play in the gravels. Baseball, of course, was outside. So we just kind of grew up that way. Everybody out here in our town, we all played together. But that going back to being outside, I mean, I remember even whenever the weather was cold, I'd scrape off my driveway and my basketball court with a shovel and shovel off my driveway. My court with snow on it and shoot basketball in the wintertime. It's just something that I just love to do. I wanted to do. I wasn't thinking about, long-term plans. It was just, man, that's what I want to do today. So I'd go outside and shovel off my court and shoot basketball. If we weren't playing baseball in the summertime, we was playing wiffle ball. Man, I had a neighborhood. We had a lot of kids in the neighborhood. We'd all meet over at my neighbor's house. We'd play baseball in the backyard and just always playing, man. We was always outside. We were always playing. We was always active. And just one thing led to another into junior high, into high school. And, I was very fortunate, man. I had great parents. I had great people around me. In high school, I guess we want to talk about high school. I don't want to, if you have questions here, to jump in, man. I can ramble on.
Yeah. You're doing great.
I don't want to ramble on too much. But I had great high school coaches as well. Rick Carrington, Del Wiestep, Greg Smith. You guys know Greg Smith real well down there. Gene, he's helping coach down at Portsmouth a little bit for you. And now he's at Notre Dame. But anyway, Greg was my baseball coach, and then Howard Richards. Just had great people around me, great men, good mentors. Very fortunate that way. Very fortunate.
Brett, there's a lot of things, I've kind of made some notes I want to get to, but the one thing you mentioned, I know we've talked about this, you were bigger than everybody else. It's hard to hide,
Yeah.
I remember hearing about you as a kid before I even met you. Like you were already on people's radar. How did you deal with the pressure of that, the expectations? And, we got some other kids out there that are taller kids that don't want to be noticed, but it's hard not to be noticed. But how did you deal with that? Can you give us a little bit of insight?
Yeah. Man, I'm going to be truly, really honest with you. I never thought I was ever any good, to be honest with you. I just played. I loved playing. I had a great time playing. But I just played and I wanted to win. I was just fortunate, whenever I shot the ball, it went in. Playing basketball and baseball, I threw hard and I was able to strike guys out, kept us in games. I wasn't a great hitter. I was a decent hitter. I mean, I was able to hit some home runs every once in a while, and I'd drive in guys on our high school team. But being big, I guess, taller than a lot of guys, I always kind of prided myself in being able to handle the basketball and pass and do those types of things. And they never really want to let the big guy do that. Hey, you're the tall kid, so you go stand underneath the rim somewhere and try to get rebounds, and we'll throw you the ball in there. But I always, whenever I watched basketball, I always liked the guys on the perimeter. And I always tried to pattern myself more after guys like that, believe it or not. Maybe not guards, but just wing guys. I remember just watching, Dr. J and Larry Bird and guys that could have the ball in their hand and shot jump shots. And of course, I never always wanted to dunk like Dr. J, never could, but I loved watching Larry Bird handle the ball and shoot and pass. So I tried to pattern myself a little bit after those guys, just watching them play. But the size thing, it always bothered me a little bit that, when people just assume that you're good because you're tall, and basketball must be easy for you because you're so much taller than everybody. So that was always kind of, and I always took that as an insult, whether they meant that as an insult or not. That's how I took it, because that's not the reason why I was going to be good. I was going to be good because I was going to be able to handle the ball, to be able to pass and shoot and do everything, other than just stand underneath the rim on the block and lay it in. So, but guys today, if you watch big kids, they're stepping out shooting threes now. I mean, it really wasn't that common whenever I played. But now, I mean, every big kid, they're going to be able to stretch the floor. They want to stand out on the perimeter. Larry Bird could always do that. Larry Bird's about 6'9". Probably most people don't realize that, how big he is. And these European players, I mean, gosh, Luka is just phenomenal. I mean, he's a big guy that can pass, and just the European guys have changed the game today. you know,
Right.
as far as their skill set. And now you got so many Americans trying to emulate these European guys. They want to combine the athleticism of so many of our guys in America with the skill set sometimes with some of the European players. And that's just, you know, I always just wanted to be good, not because I was tall. And I always wanted to work to try to break that stigma.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Brett, you talked about you could throw the ball hard at an early age, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, we've told a lot of stories.
Yeah.
You know what I'm going to ask here, don't you?
Well, there's a couple of different ways you can go here, man. So I'm really curious.
Let's hear the story about Sam McGraw.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, Sam McGraw, I was very fortunate. You know, you guys know Sam, and Sam is so knowledgeable about sports and baseball in particular. And
one of the most.
And just phenomenal knowledge of the game, and played a little bit in the Dodgers organization. And my dad knew Sam, very lucky enough to know Sam. And my dad wanted me to, he wanted Sam to watch me throw the baseball, right? He wanted to see my mechanics and things like that. So fast pitch softball tournament. You know, my dad was the pitcher, Sam was a catcher, and between games, my dad said he told me to bring my glove that day, right? He could bring your gloves, bring your cleats. I'm like, man, I might play in a softball game today, right? Well, I didn't know what he was really wanting me to do. So anyway, I get there and between games, he said, hey, go get your glove, put your cleats on, and so Sam's over there. And so I'm throwing a little bit, you know, I'm getting my arm loose. And so Sam walks over there and he goes, all right, you know, let's see what you got, basically. And he squats down and, man, I'm chucking it. I'm throwing the ball as hard as I can. Dad's told me a little bit about Sam McGraw and who he is and some of the things, his accolades, some of the things he's accomplished. So I'm trying to impress him, man. I'm like 11 years old at the time. And I'm like, man, I'm just sweating. I'm working it up, and I'm chucking as hard as I can. And I threw about a dozen pitches, and Sam was like, all right, man, you can start throwing whenever you're ready. Whenever you're loose, start throwing the ball, right? I mean, you talking about, it just killed my soul, man. I was like, man, live. But I was like, holy cow, man, this guy, I think he's caught a couple barehanded even, I think.
Yeah. But with all that being said, there was a method to this madness.
Oh, yeah.
And he knew you had talent, and he was just trying to keep you humble, I think.
Yeah.
So,
he did offer up some advice. I mean, as far as pitching mechanics and things of that nature. And I mean, it was great experience.
Yeah.
Glad I did it. And you know, I know Sam's keeping me humble. Exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great guy. Guy.
And we both love Sam McGraw. He's one of the most knowledgeable baseball men I've ever been around. And,
me too.
So,
Love talking to him.
Brett, you talk about, you know, being long and skilled, and man, what is it in the water out at South Webster? Because South Webster has produced more long skilled basketball players probably in the last 25 years than probably anybody in the area.
Yeah, you know, I tell you, as Gene, you're right. It's really kind of crazy if you think about it. You know, we've had some really good players come through our school. And, you know, before me now, as far as being long and skilled, I mean, just popping into my head, obviously, you know, me and Jeff Bradley played at Cedarville. You know, Brian Dyer played for you guys down at down at Shawnee State. Now he wasn't so much as long. He was tall. He was a big kid, you know, and he could handle the ball, shoot a little bit. But you know, gosh, and then everybody knows of Nick Aldridge, of course, led us to two state tournaments, state championship in 2006. You know, gosh, he was a big, really skilled, athletic guy, great hands. Man, we've been very fortunate. You know, we've had some. You know, South Webster, it goes up and down. You know, we've had some kids. We've had some really good size.
What was the other kid that played at Marshall that could really shoot it? Scarberry's
Austin Luke.
Yeah, he's another long kid could really shoot it.
Yeah. Austin kept growing. He
Yeah.
he just kept growing. Austin probably ended up about 6'4", I'd say. Yeah.
Yep.
Austin
Yeah.
had a great career at Marshall.
Absolutely.
All-time leading 3-point shot maker at Marshall. I think that record's since been broke, but at the time, Austin had a great career here. I'd like to think my son here is played pretty well. He's about 6'6", 6'7", really long and athletic, skilled kid.
Yep.
So, we've been fortunate enough to have some kids out here that could play and do some things, and been very, very fortunate with that.
Brett, you get drafted out of high school by the Reds, 33rd round. Decided not to sign. Went on to Morehead State, played both sports. We put out this mental performance journal. One of the things we focus on is time management.
Yeah.
How did you manage your time? You're playing 2 Division I sports, going to class, trying to have a social life.
Yeah, man.
Can you give us some insight on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Man, I'll be honest with you. I was always one of those guys in high school, man. It's basketball season. That's my favorite thing. That's all I want to do, right? Then all of a sudden baseball season would come around. I was like, man, I really love baseball. That's what I really want to do. I spent all my summers with you, Jeff, playing on the American Legion post-23 team down there. We'd play 60, 70 ball games every summer. And so I spent so much time splitting my time, and man, it was just so tough, man. It was just really tough. I never felt like how much better am I getting at either one of these, I remember having the opportunity to go to Morehead to play basketball. They came and watched me play one night, and I didn't even play very well. We had a home game. We played Oak Hill. I never really had even heard of Morehead State at that time. It was crazy that sounds. I was like, man, I remember asking Del Estep. He was our assistant coach, and I think he had mentioned, and maybe I got a letter. At that time, you used to get letters. You guys remember those days?
Oh, yeah.
You get a letter from somebody. Like, man, I got a letter from Creighton. I got a letter from, Morehead, whatever.
Yeah.
And I remember getting one. And I remember asking Coach Estep, Del Estep, and I was like, hey, man, where's this place at? And he goes, it's only in Dover, Kentucky, about a couple hours away. I was like, oh, really? But anyway, so they come and watch me play one night, and I didn't even think I played very well. But assistant coach at the time, Jeff Burkhamer, he was impressed enough. He made the decision he was going to offer me, and so obviously I was going to commit. And then during baseball season, they knew I liked baseball. Steve Hamilton, which, golly, he played professionally for the Lakers and the New York Yankees. And he pitched in the big leagues. He pitched in the big leagues for the New York Yankees. He two professional, dual sport athlete. And he was Morehead State's baseball coach. And he came up and watched me pitch a tournament game. We were playing up at Rock Hill. And again, I just threw hard, man. I didn't know where it was going. I just chucked it as hard as I could throw it, and he liked my arm. And after the game, he said, I know you're coming down to play basketball. We'd love to have you play baseball as well. So I was like, all right, man, I want to do it. Not knowing anything, just so naive to how college, I've never been on a college campus, just not knowing college sports, how much time it takes, the dedication it takes. But I show up at Morehead, and I go to the basketball meeting, hey, I meeting all the guys, then go to the baseball meeting, meet all the guys. And then they're like, man, you're going to try to play both, even older guys that knew why I was there or what I was going to try to do. I mean, I think everybody had some skepticism about me being able to pull this off. And, man, I'll tell you, it was exhausting. I'm not going to lie. The fall was the hardest. I would go to we'd start basketball in the fall, and I'd go to conditioning, and I'd run my guts out with the guys on the basketball team. And then as soon as we were done, baseball practice was starting. And if you've been on Morehead's campus, the basketball facility and the baseball facility, they're right. I mean, you can walk there. I mean, they're within a 3-minute walk from each other. It's a great layout. I'd get done with basketball and I'd walk straight up to baseball practice. I'd be out there and we'd go through pitching workouts and do all those types of things. And then I'd go home, go back to my dorm room and try to study a little bit. You know, I wasn't the greatest student, but I was always eligible. I got 2 degrees. So that was good. But it was very demanding. Gosh, it was very demanding. I look back at it now and I think, how did I pull that off?
Mm-hmm.
And but I'm really proud of being able to do that. Really proud. I had my coaches were extremely, you know, they worked with me. Professors worked with me, you know, because you're traveling. I mean, you think about whenever the season starts, man, I'm traveling both semesters, you know, so
Right.
It was a tough thing. It was a tough thing.
Mm-hmm.
Brett, Steve Hamilton was a baseball coach?
Yeah, my
No,
freshman year. Yes, and Frank Spaniel my next 2 years. Yep.
Right. But Steve, if I'm not mistaken, is he the only person to have a World Series ring and an NBA championship ring?
To my knowledge, I think he still is.
I think he is. Yeah.
You know, man, just real quick, just talk about him for a minute. Steve was a lot older guy, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm sure my dad knew who he was way better than what I did.
Mm-hmm.
But man, it was really cool just being a college athlete. And, you know, guys, you know, have fans at the games and stuff like that. We go on the road, you know, and Steve Hamilton, this guy was a New York Yankee. He played with Mickey Mantle, you know, Joe DiMaggio. You know, he had all these guys. He played with the Minneapolis Lakers in the NBA, NBA championship, World Series rings. He was famous for the Folly Floater. You remember that? You guys probably remember that. You know, he made that pitch famous.
Mm-hmm.
But being on the road and then just seeing these fans come up and talk to him like he's, you know, have his baseball cards and there he is with the New York Yankee uniform. And I'm like, man, just looking at it, just being so in awe of it, you know, just, I don't know, it kind of takes you back. Sometimes we forget to be fans of what we're doing.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so it made me a fan of what I was doing. You know, it really did. It made me a fan again of what I was doing and had so much more respect and admiration for Coach Hamilton. Great guy. You know, just I had a great time, man. Great time. I was very fortunate. Very fortunate.
He was a very humble man.
He was very humble.
Humble.
He would never, he didn't really ever talk about it unless you asked him. If you talked to him, if you brought it up, he would talk to you about it. But it wasn't like he sat around and, hey, let me tell you this story about, you know, Mickey Mantle or, you know, somebody like that. But if you asked him, you know, he was very cordial, you know, very cordial about it, but he wasn't like boastful about it, you know?
Right.
Yeah. Great guy.
Mm-hmm. Brett, your first 3 seasons at Moorhead, you average 14 points a game, roughly.
Yeah.
In your senior year, you bump up to 28.1, lead the nation. And was
Yep.
that the year Dick Fick took over?
That was Dick Fick's first year, yes. My senior year.
How did Dick Fick change not only your mentality, but the culture of the program?
Yeah. So my first 3 years there, man, we were really talented. We had a lot of guys that could play, really athletic. I just never felt like we had the true leadership that we needed on that team. And I shouldn't say that. It's not like I'm being critical of our coaches, but man, I just always felt like we underachieved. We were really athletic. And, you know, and I was playing baseball this whole time. And, you know, I was having some pretty good success. My freshman year, I was the OVC Freshman of the Year that year. And Popeye Jones was at Murray State. We were the exact same age. And Popeye obviously went on. He was 2-time Player of the Year in our conference as a sophomore and a junior, and then played professionally with the Houston Rockets. And he's still coaching with the Denver Nuggets, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, but I was freshman year, my freshman year, had a lot of success. And our team was really athletic, but we never was accomplishing many team goals. On the baseball diamond, you know, I was having some success. I was striking out a lot of guys. I was still kind of being more well known with that, and I've spent a lot of my off seasons playing baseball. So I remember the summer going into my junior year, between my sophomore and junior year, I played in the Wooden Bat League in Cincinnati, called the Great Lakes League. I think it was called the Great Lakes League. And the team I was playing for was the Cincinnati Spirit. Had a great summer, really good. And I had made a pretty good name for myself, and that's that summer. I knew I was jumped up on a lot of draft charts with some teams. So whenever I go back for my junior year, man, we had a super talented team, and we got beat out in the OVC tournament. Pretty frustrated with it, and also just the direction of our team at the time with baseball or basketball. Then baseball season came about, and had a great junior year in baseball. I ended up getting drafted in the fourth round by the Twins, and kind of at that time, you really couldn't hire an agent, because you lose your NCAA eligibility, right? So I'm kind of going through the Twins. I mean, just deer in headlights with how this stuff actually works. I mean, so trying to come and through the signing bonus, and am I going to sign? Am I going to go back to school? Am I going to this? Just not know what I was going to do. So finally, I got the draft was like June 3rd. I didn't sign a professional contract until like July the 6th. I think it was about July the 6th. So it was about a whole month. So I go down and I was kind of trying to negotiate with the Twins. I was willing to walk away from basketball, to be honest with you. I was put an offer on the table. I was like, hey, if you guys give me the X amount of dollars, I won't play basketball again. But if you give me less than that, or if we agree on something less than that, then I want to play basketball my senior year. So that time, Moorhead obviously had decided to make a coaching change. Also, then that month prior to the Major League Baseball draft and me actually signing. So I went down to Moorhead, and while Dick Fick got the job, I didn't know who Dick Fick was. He came from Creighton. He was the assistant basketball coach at Creighton. Creighton had a really good program. Tony Baroni was the head coach at that time, and Dick was top assistant. So Dick comes and he calls me on the phone. He said, "Hey," he said, "I'd like to meet with you." And I say, "Hey, coach, I can come down to Moorhead." So I buzzed down to Moorhead, and actually I was pitching with Moorhead Summer League baseball team that year, with the college guys had a league, so I pitched that night. Dick comes to the game, and the game's over, and he's waiting in the parking lot for me, and we start talking for a little bit. And he said, "Hey," he said, "I've been watching film of all the guys coming back from last year," and he said, "You remind me a lot of a guy who played for us at Creighton." He said, "I got a lot of plans for you." He said, "I want to get you in the best shape of your life, and I want to give you the green light. You can shoot it whenever you want." Swear to God. Swear to God.
Wow.
I was like, "Really?" I was like, "Are you sure?" I said, "No kidding." He goes, "Man, I'm telling you." He said, "You come back and play." He said, "You got the green light. You can shoot it whenever you want." He said, "But you got to be in the best shape of your life." I was like, "All right, I can do that." So I knew right then, the first time meeting Dick, he just had this personality. I mean, he looked like Mike Ditka. You guys have seen pictures of Dick, and he looked like Mike Ditka. He was super intense. He could talk, he could communicate, and man, right then and there in the parking lot down there in Round County, out on a baseball field down on Moorhead, it's the first time I ever met Dick, and he told me it's what he told me, and I knew I wanted to play basketball. So go back my senior year, man, and he worked me harder than anybody has ever worked me in my entire life. I thought that I had worked hard. I thought that I was in good shape in years prior to that. As far as what we were doing in the weight room, what we were doing conditioning wise, it was the best shape of my entire life. So we have our first game of the season, and we're playing in I think West Virginia Tech or West Virginia State. I can't remember. It was one of them. And we're playing, man. I mean, we were going to press. Really, my senior year was not the most talented team we had. It was really kind of frustrating. If Dick had coached us any year prior to my senior year, man, I think we'd gone to the NCAA. We could have won the OVC tournament and gone to the NCAA tournament. But we were really just not as talented as what I hoped we had been. But we played really, really hard. We played really together the entire time. And the first game I had like 40 points, I think. And but I was shooting and everything was going in, I was like, man, this is, I was just in great shape. And, one thing led to another. I'm telling you, it was just like, one game led to 2 games, led to 3 games. And then it led into the 3rd and 4th week of the season. And Dick and Coach Fick was right. I mean, if I was open, I was allowed to shoot it. And, when they started going in, he just kept telling me to shoot it more. I was like, all right, I can do that. No problem. It's my kind of guy right here,
Yeah.
But I kind of I don't want to leave out anybody because I know Genius is going to be close to you, and a great friend of mine, Patrick Tubbs from Portsmouth. Man, he's a great friend of mine, still is to this day. We did a lot of driving back and forth together. I'd pick Pat up in Portsmouth, and we'd head down to Moorhead, Kentucky, and just we had a great time down there together. Pat was a great player, man. Probably the best game Pat played. One of the best games he had was against the University of Kentucky our senior year, man. Pat played great. He did, man. He went to work on those guys, but man, just want to give Pat a shout out. He's a great guy, Portsmouth, Ohio, and he's a Portsmouth Trojan, man. Won the '88 state tournament.
One of my former teammates,
Coach Sabaticki, and I know I'm getting kind of off topic here a little bit, but my senior year of high school, I was the same age as Pat and David Barnes and Craig Miller, and man, that team was loaded, man. They had a great team, and so I went down there in the fall. Man, I know David and some of them guys played football, but I'd go down there. I'd play open gym with Coach Sabaticki, and man, you talk about an intense and open gym.
Right.
So we was playing against Portsmouth's team minus the football guys. That year, man, we had some great games, great pickup games in the old gym over there. Man, it was a great time, man. Just listen to Sabaticki, which at that time I really didn't even know who Sabaticki was. That guy just won a state championship at Akron St. Vincent and St. Mary, right?
Right.
Is that where he was at? Yeah.
Yep.
Coach Jerome Lane, and it
Curtis
was
Wilson.
just really cool.
Yeah. That tells you how good I was, Gene. I was actually at those games when Brett was coming down there.
Yeah. Oh. Sorry about that, Jeff. I forgot.
No. It is. Hey, it is what it is. But I'm going to remind you, because we've talked about this. It was you, Mark Eaton, who was a great player, divisional player, Kevin Pace from Shawnee State.
Yes.
And a couple of whoever else, and you guys would scrimmage us, minus David Barnes and Dominic McKinley.
Right.
Yeah.
And you remember the day we were in the girls' gym. Now, this is open gym basketball, okay?
Yeah.
And you guys were putting it on us right out of the gate. And he kicked you guys out of the gym, and he made us run suicides for about a half hour.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
I didn't know if I should say that or not, man. It was supposed to be open gym.
Statute of limitations is passed, man.
Yeah, exactly right. Hey, I'll tell you what. I could not believe the intensity in that man in open gym.
Yeah.
I mean, he would not let up, man. He would not let up. And I could see why you guys obviously went on and won the state tournament that year.
Yeah.
You guys were in great shape. And I mean, I felt bad for you guys a couple times, man, but for the way he would yell.
Yeah.
So he broke you in. So when you got to Dick Fick, you had already seen a little bit of Dick Fick with Sub.
Hey, Gene, there's a lot of truth to that statement right there, man. Coach Sabaticki had some colorful language,
Oh, yeah.
And Coach Fick, he had extremely colorful language. He did, man. He was something else. He was something else.
Now, was Mike Helton with you? Did he redshirt when you were there, or was he after you?
Mike Helton transferred down. He played my senior year. That was his first year of playing at Moorhead State.
Okay.
Yeah, he was a freshman that year.
Yeah, Mike would tell stories when he came to Shawnee. It was because we really thought we had Mike out of high school. I mean, we recruited him
Yeah.
really, really hard.
Yep.
And then
Yep.
went down to the 64th, the regional tournament down to Moorhead and just went
Yep.
nuts.
He did. Yep.
And then all of a sudden, Moorhead comes in and signs there. But
Yep.
then he tell the story that he kept his golf clubs in his car. Knew
He
and he
did.
get thrown out of practice about 10 minutes in. He said he was getting tired, so he just started keeping his golf clubs.
Hey.
He gets out of practice and go play golf.
Oh, Gene, that's a true story, man. That's
Yep.
honest to God. That's a true story. You know, Mike was a good player. Mike was really strong. And,
Yes.
he was really strong, and you know, he was able to really step on the court and take a lot of the physicality of it.
Right.
And man, you know, he just went nuts during that Region 16 tournament in high school, and you know, Mike Moorhead signed him obviously, and Mike had some good days. He had some good games for us, just because of he was so strong.
Yep.
And man, just you know, Fick and him probably weren't great together. You know,
Right.
Mike. You know, Mike was a whipping boy sometimes. I ain't gonna lie. You know, he was Coach Fick's whipping boy. He was easy to yell at. Mike could take it. You know, you couldn't make him mad. He wouldn't stay mad at you. You know, he was a great guy. He had a great attitude. But he got to the point where he just packed his golf clubs, kept them in his car, waiting for practice, waiting for him to get kicked out of practice, and he'd go golf for a while. Yeah, exactly. That's a true story.
Well, I could see Mike getting next to Dick Fick, because I can see Mike rolling his eyes or making some funny gesture when Dick Fick be pissed, and it would just probably send him over the head.
Oh yeah. Excuse me. That's the truth. Mike played really, really good up at Wisconsin Milwaukee. Man, he had a great first half, and he had a great first half. He really did. So he come in the second half. They put a different guy on Mike, and he stopped scoring, and then all of a sudden Mike's guy got hot. All right, and Mike couldn't stop him, and we end up losing that game. And we come in the locker room, and we're pretty frustrated because we thought we had that game, and it wasn't Mike's fault. I was just his guy got hot, and but you know, you just not one play lose the game anyway. So we come in the locker room, and Fick comes in after the game. Man, he's just tearing Mike's hind end. Man, he throws Mike out of the locker room. He says, "Man, you don't even deserve to be in the locker room with us. Get out of the locker room. Maybe you stand outside." And then he yelled at the rest of us, and you know, always kind of felt bad for Mike because he had a heck of a game. He just, you know, he had a heck of a game. Guy just got hot, you know, and anyway, but he was a freshman, so he was going to take it. You know, he's going to have to take it. Just one of those things. And I know Mike ended up having a really good career for you guys down at Shawnee.
Oh yeah.
Hey, Mike's doing great, man. He's down in Palm Beach, Florida. Yeah, he survived hurricane down there. Yeah, so he's doing good.
So Brett, let's get into your professional career. You were drafted 1992 NBA draft by the Kings. Had to make a decision. And you chose to go the baseball route. You know, you went to big league camp. You were on the big league roster a couple years. And I'd like for you to share the story. I think your first big league camp, and you said you walked out to the dugout to kind of take it all in.
Yeah.
And you had a couple guys sitting next to you, and they had some very kind words to say. Can you share the story?
Yeah, absolutely. Man, so, you know, I was always a fan of the game, all right? I'm a fan of watching Major League Baseball, fan of NBA basketball, and believe it or not, I always felt like I was a pretty humble guy, and I try to keep my mouth shut. I was one of them guys that's when I walk into a locker room, you know, especially as a young guy, as a freshman or a sophomore, just, you know, the upperclassmen, you know, they control the locker room. You know, if you're in a big league clubhouse or you're around big league baseball players, those guys control the clubhouse. I'll speak when spoken to. I mean, I was just kind of the respect I had for those guys. And that's kind of how I was brought up. You know, you're humble, man. You're out there trying to earn a spot, and you know, so my very first experience with Major League Baseball spring training, we get to go with the Twins, and obviously they had just won the World Series in '88 and '91, so they still had some phenomenal players around there. I mean, Kirby Puckett, Chuck Knobloch, Rick Aguilera. I mean, Greg Gagne had just or Kent Hrbek had just retired. But these guys are still around. They have a great nucleus. Tom Kelly was the manager. And they had just signed Paul Molitor, I think, pretty much as a free agent. And so we're getting ready to play the Red Sox one day. And I was, they kind of list your starting pitchers and guys. You're definitely going to get some work that day as a pitcher. But I was on like an injury guy. I was one of those guys listed. So I was there in uniform, and I walk out of the clubhouse into the dugout, and I'm just sitting there, man. I wanted to be one of the guys out there, first guys out there. I just want to take it all in, man. I mean, and so I'm sitting there, I'm just looking at the field. I mean, I just love the smell of the grass, the lime, the pine tar. I was one of those guys. I know it sounds crazy, but I just loved all that stuff, and just the small things that just meant a lot to me. And so I'm just sitting there just looking, man. I'm just watching the Red Sox out there getting loose. And, the Twins guys are out there getting loose. And, man, all of a sudden I'm sitting there. I look to my left, and there's Kirby Puckett. And I look to my right, and there's Paul Molitor. And I'm sitting in between these two guys, I mean, I'm like, man, I just watched these guys on TV, I'm really sitting here beside them in the same uniform them guys are wearing. Mm-hmm. And, man, you're just such a cool experience. And, those guys are talking to me like, I've been on their team for 3 years, 3 seasons, just talking to me, sharing stories. It's like, hey, man, what do you think about how you working some of these hitters, whenever you get in the batter's box? How do you think a pitcher's going to approach me? And, I mean, just always talking about the game. And just being a part of that, man, it was just such a neat experience. And being a part, I just felt honored to be there. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And Kirby Puckett, I think it was Kirby, had some kind words to say.
I was able to throw. So I got to throw Major League. You're always throwing live batting practice to those guys. And, I remember pitching, and the Kirby Puckett steps in the back. I mean, first of all, so they run through some guys, maybe some guys that are on the big league club, but not the star players at times. And all of a sudden, Kirby Puckett jumps in the batter's box, and I'm throwing live BP now to Kirby Puckett. Mm-hmm. The first thing that goes through my head is like, man, don't hit this guy. You know what I mean? Yeah. Golly, man, if I chuck one in there, man, I hit him in the wrist or the hand, and I break a bone or something like that. And he's on a 60-day DL or something to start the season, man. I'm toast. I'm out of there, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm like, man, don't hit him. So anyway, I'm throwing it in there, and he's getting some good hacks. It's live BP, man. So I'm not telling him what's coming really. I'm throwing breaking balls, and he's hitting the ball, but he's not lacing home runs and line drives. He's putting the ball in play. I'm getting him out, and so Kirby. When it was all said and done, Kirby had some great words for me. Really nice. He said, "Hey man, you got really good stuff. Your fastball has a lot of late life. Late life in the zone he's talking about. Your curveball is really tight, really sharp." He said, "It's hard to pick up," and really positive, encouraging words I've never forgotten, and really meant a lot to me at the time. And Puckett told me. He goes, man, so I'll give you I'll give you a little bit of advice too. He says, you seem like a really nice guy. He said, to keep your mouth shut. He said, I'll leave you some advice. He goes, if one of us ever get traded and we have to play against each other, he said, if you want to get me out, throw it right down the middle. He goes, I'll miss it every time. He said, I'm a jump ball hitter. That's what he said. He goes, I'm a jump ball hitter. He said, guys try to work me way out of the strike zone, And he goes, I swing at everything. He goes, if you want to get me out, throw it right down the middle. He goes, I'll miss it every time.
Yeah.
So, you know, true story. Never forget that. Never forget that.
I'd say Kirby Puckett could hit it about wherever it's pitched, couldn't he?
Yeah, he could, man. The guy was phenomenal, man. He was phenomenal. Really nice guy, too. Really nice guy.
Yeah. Brett, I'm going to be honest. I don't know if you want to hear this or not, but, you know, when I watched the game today, baseball and basketball,
yeah,
there are times I think about you.
Yeah.
You're a big league middle reliever. You come in, throw it as hard as you can for 2 innings.
Yeah.
Today's game, positionless basketball fits your skill set to a T.
Yep. Yeah.
You ever think about that?
Unfortunately, I think about it all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of life is about timing, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, honestly, I'll tell you, man, it's a lot about timing. You know, I watched the game, and I'll be honest with you, man, I didn't even realize it, but I came up in the steroid era, and I was in a Sports Illustrated article that Tom Verducci wrote.
Yeah.
I mean, I came up in baseball in the steroid era, and I look back on it now, and I'm really, really frustrated about it. And I really have I hate to say this, but I really have a bitter taste in my mouth about it, to be quite honest with you, because people knew it, organizations knew it, and they didn't care. I really feel that. Now, they didn't come out and openly say, I want you to do this. I've never had anybody with the Twins offer me steroids, ever. So I don't want anyone to ever think that. But there was guys that I played with that were using them. And, you know, Dan Nolte was really the main character in that story that Tom Verducci wrote. Well, Craig Biggio, too. He was on the cover of the article because Craig
Ken Caminetti.
Ken Kennedy, I'm sorry. Yeah, not
right.
Craig Biggio. I'm sorry. Ken Kennedy. You're exactly right.
Right.
So, hey, will you flip a light on over there? Yeah, thank you. So, anyway, so growing up in that, and I could throw the ball hard at that time. You know, at that time, you know, guys who could throw the ball in the low 90s to mid 90s, those guys threw hard. Now guys are throwing mid 90s to 100 miles an hour. Those are the guys that throw hard. But if you think about that, Jeff, and kind of to your point, but I was a starting pitcher, and that's what I did. So if I knew that I just had to come in for 2 innings and throw the ball as hard as I could throw it, I mean, this is what I was built for. I mean, I was knock on wood. I was never hurt. I was always healthy. I could have done this today. I really believe I could have done it. I was just kind of maybe before my time and a little bit. And basketball wise, you know, people have asked me a lot, and I think about it. If I really had dedicated myself to playing basketball, I could have done it. I could have. I know I could have made it. I could shoot it. And I spent so much time, all my off season was never working on my game and working on my athleticism. You know, it was always working on baseball. And I think I could have played in Major League Baseball. And I know I don't mean to sound boastful or arrogant, but I think I could have played in the NBA. I really do. And especially if I'd have just spent some time focusing on that. You know, because once you start to learn your role, you know, my role would have changed. I mean, I did everything at Moorhead as far as handle the ball and pass and do these types of things. But, you know, I would have had a specific role in the NBA. And I could have filled that role. I mean, I could have been a guy that, you know, that would have come off the bench, man. You know, we need someone to shoot the ball. You know, I could have been that guy. And, you know, and I was tall. I mean, I could beat and bang. I mean, I could guard bigger guys. You know, what I had to work on, obviously, was some athleticism so I could guard the smaller guys, you know, kind of away from the basket on the perimeter at times. And I don't know. I mean, just there's so many things that, you know, you look back on and I wouldn't change it, to be honest with you. I met so many great people, had great opportunities and just I wouldn't change it. But sometimes if you did change one thing, what would it be? So I have those conversations with myself too often, probably. Yeah.
Brett, did you find that, like, when you play basketball at Moorhead and being a long guy that could really shoot it, which was
Yep.
not normal at the time that you played?
Yep.
I mean, your big guys were, like you say, a Popeye Jones, who was a
Yeah.
post guy, not a perimeter guy. Did
Right.
you find that you caught yourself being open a bunch because big
Yeah.
guys couldn't get out and guard?
Yeah. Gene, that is such a good point. I was so fortunate. Fick we ran an open post offense. We had a lot of motion. And Fick just said, hey, he said, listen, if you have a big guy guarding you, you need to go out on the perimeter. I mean, you can shoot over those guys. You can drive by them because I can handle the ball.
Right.
And I had a good first step, and I could get by those guys. So Popeye could not guard me on the perimeter. Then he said, so whenever they switch, they put a smaller guy on you, then you need to go inside. You need to post up. And so Coach Fick gave me the freedom to do those types of things. I just had to be smart enough to recognize and take advantage of what I had, what I could do against the defender. And so, you obviously get those long, rangy guys, that they're really good jumpers and they can guard you, and they're good defenders. And so, they make you work, man. You got to do a lot of cutting. You got to get your shot off quick, so I was able to do that. And, just all about the system you're in, Gene, all about the system you're in. And I was very, yeah.
Yeah, I can, it's funny you talk about system, and I can remember watching a game, talk about Jeff Bradley. And Jeff, probably didn't average 10 points a game in high school.
Yeah.
And then he went to Cedarville, and he was a 6'7" two guard, and they had a 6'9" post guy.
Yeah.
One of the best players in the league. You couldn't guard him. He had like 28, 29 points a game. Just putting up incredible numbers.
Yeah.
Because there was nobody could guard him. He was just too long, and he could slash, shoot the three. He could get the line, and then of course he had a 6'11" guy in the post that played along with him. So you're absolutely right.
Yep. It's all about the system, man. Just very, very fortunate, and luckily, and also, I want to bring up, my high school basketball coach, Rick Carrington. Man, he was a great man, great mentor, great teacher of the game, a great educator, great person. So he didn't just take me or make me stand in the post. He allowed me to play on the perimeter as well, because he knew I could handle the ball, I could pass, and I could do those types of things. And so he let me play on the perimeter. Again, take advantage of what you can do, of the defense guys guarding you. And plus, also in high school, I mean, you guys know it's too easy to double and triple team guys sometimes. And if you're going to go stand on the block and just post up, man, just put everybody down on the block, and until someone else proves they can shoot the ball from the perimeter, we're just going to guard this guy. You know? So, I credit Coach Carrington for allowing me to get on the perimeter and kind of showcase some of my abilities that way, because he didn't make me just stand in a lane.
Right.
Brett, kind of going back to what you talked about, I absolutely believe 100% you could have pitched in the big leagues, you could have played in the NBA, whatever you chose to do. I believe that with all my heart. This is kind of when, we used to work out together in the off season. I would catch you. So I just want to add, you had a big league curveball. It wasn't just that you threw the ball hard. You had a major league curveball. So we've talked about this. Can you at times be too coachable? And you know where I'm going with this. Because when I caught you, when I played with you in Legion ball, you were a power pitcher.
Yeah.
You talk about, your wildness and but you were effectively wild, I thought. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. Yep.
But when I caught you, you had become more of a finesse pitcher.
Yep. Jeff, you and I have had a lot of personal conversations. I mean, we've been really good friends for a lot of years. And, you've kind of was somebody I used to kind of bend your ear because, you played, man, you was a great player yourself. I mean, guys, you playing at Portsmouth High School and Indiana University, got to play in the Reds organization. I mean, you've been around great players yourself. You've seen coaching at all levels. And we'd come home in the off season, you and I, and we'd work out together, and I got to talk to you about these types of things. And so I think, where you're going with that is, I was a power pitcher. I was load up on my back leg and drive off the pitcher's mound. And I wasn't pretty, I wasn't a pretty guy to watch pitch the baseball. Because, I had long arms and long legs, and, I was maximum effort guy. And the Twins wanted these nice, pretty for lack of a better word, but they wanted guys that would stand tall on their back leg, and they'd want, someone to just follow through, and everything was always in a straight line with home plate. Everybody was finishing the exact same way. They want everybody to kind of be in this cookie cutter mold. And I didn't fit that. And I had a really, really hard time. Well, I mean, I think that's probably why I never made it to the big leagues. I kept trying to fit into their cookie cutter mold. And I'm not, I don't want to be real critical of the Twins. I mean, they gave me an opportunity. They did. And they gave me 6.5, 7 years to prove myself, but I never fit that mold. And I'll never forget, I think I've told you this story, Jeff, and maybe that's what you maybe want me to tell. But, when I was in Kenosha, Wisconsin, it was in A-ball. And, actually, I played with the first time I got to play with a guy by the name of Eddie Guardado. Eddie Guardado was a left-handed pitcher, and he ended up making it to the big leagues. He had a legitimate big league career. He played with multiple different teams for several years. Great guy. He was a really good guy, and he was a bulldog, man. He was a bulldog on the mound. And he never fit the Twins cookie cutter guy either. He was a shorter guy, stockier guy, and he was left-handed. But he threw the ball hard. He had good breaking pitches, and he was just such a competitor. And he got to see me pitch, and he knew what I was whenever the Twins drafted me. So because he saw me from the very first time I started pitching, and then he saw what they were trying to do to me. As we got through A-ball and we got into Double-A, and he told me one day, he said, "Man," he said, "Brett," he said, "You're not that guy." He said, "That's not how you do it." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "Man," he said, "sometimes it's not about how you throw it. It's just all about getting guys out." And I'm like, well, I mean, that's true. I mean, it is really true. But every time I would have a good outing in the bullpen, they still kept trying to make me pitch this certain way to fit their mold, their cookie cutter mold of what they wanted their pitcher to look like. And so it didn't matter how much success I was having. They kept trying to change me. And I was always taught, you listen to your coaches. I mean, you listen to your teachers, you listen to your coaches, and they're doing these things. And so I did. I mean, that's what I did. That's all I tried to do, try to make them happy. But the more I tried to make them happy, sometimes the less success I was having. And so I was always in an inner turmoil of being frustrated that I wasn't having success I felt I should, but yet I was trying to pitch and throw and look the way they wanted me to look. And, so it just, I don't know. It was just kind of strange. I think that's kind of the story you was talking to.
Yeah.
There was a happy median, and I never really found it. I never really found the happy median. I really did. And I think that's what caused me. If I'd been with a different organization, maybe things would have been a lot different. I think they could have been. But, they weren't. I wasn't. I was with the Minnesota Twins organization at the time. So that's just how that worked out, to be honest with you.
I would always encourage coachability. To me, coachability is basically just being humble,
Yeah.
But I had a similar situation my senior year, Hall of Fame coach, high school baseball coach, great coach.
Yeah.
But he kind of wanted me to hit a certain way. Yeah. And I kind of knew. The thing I'm trying to, you got to be your own coach at times. And be in tune with yourself. And I don't think there's anything wrong with kind of knowing yourself. I don't know, Gene. I mean, you've coached, you've played. I mean, do you agree with that a little bit? I mean,
I think what has to happen is, and I learned this myself from being a coach at Portsmouth, is I had to coach Portsmouth different than if I was the coach at Webster.
Yeah.
Or if I was the coach at Willisburg, or if I was the coach at Memphis. Different places requires you to do different things. Now, you have to be really, really confident in yourself and be the type of person that can accept criticism, because you're going to get it. You're going to get criticism for doing things how you want to do it, so to speak. And you got to be confident within yourself, because if not, you're always going to be, and I can understand where Brett's coming from. It's kind of like, here's how I really want to be, but this is not how they want me to be.
Yeah.
And you're constantly questioning, should I be how I really want to be, or should I be how they are?
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of years to get there. I would have been a lot like Brett if I coached and I was a lot younger, but being older and kind of, okay, this is me, and this is how I'm going to do it, regardless of what people think. But it takes some years of just being confident within yourself to do that.
Yeah. Hey, great point, Gene. Great point. I mean, you got to have confidence and being some experience within yourself to do that. Eddie Guardado, man, he was a very confident guy. He really was, and plus, he was just a confident guy, man. He was a bulldog on the mound. He had that mentality, and he ended up making it. He made it kind of briefly with the Twins, and he ended up with somebody else. He ended up with the Reds, and I forget. Forgive me, but he spent a lot of years with somebody else. It wasn't the Twins or the Reds. Jeff, you might be able to remember that better than me, but he had.
He had a lengthy career.
He did have a lengthy career.
Yeah.
He bounced around from some teams, but I just, and I wish I had. He said, "Like, hey, listen, man, it's all about getting guys out. Don't worry about what you look like. Don't worry about these types of things. Get guys out." Because really, it wasn't like I was. I wish I had been better. Gosh, I wish I had been more confident in myself and doing it that way, because I worked extremely hard. I mean, they never questioned my work ethic ever.
Mm-hmm.
And you're kind of a little bit on your own, believe it or not. I mean, you're expected to work hard. It's not like that your pitching coach takes you out there and he runs you every day. I mean, it's like, hey, listen, man, you need to get your running in, you need to get your poles in, you need to get your throwing in, and you kind of do that stuff. And they never had to question that about me. I took a lot of pride in my conditioning. I took a lot of pride in how hard I worked. But I just wish I had the confidence to keep doing it the way I was comfortable doing it, the way I had success. Because honestly, Jeff, you're right. I mean, you saw me. We played so much baseball together. I mean, you saw what got me drafted, and what got me drafted is not what I became.
Right.
And that's what kind of ruined. I don't want to say it ruined me, but that's was a little bit of my downfall, to be honest with you.
Yeah. And the point I'm trying to make is that I do think players who work hard, they know themselves, especially when you get to the professional level. I mean, you've been doing it for a long time.
Yep.
I think if you do it in the right way, a professional way, you should be able to have some input,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Have a conversation with a coach,
I know you talked a little bit about the mind game of this, and Gene, you're still coaching. I'm a principal. I'm around young kids every day. And Jeff, I know you've coached and you've been around, and gosh, you've written a book, man. I mean, you guys are smart guys, but it's just the athletes today and the kids today. I mean, you've got to get on their level and talk to them.
Yes.
And if it's almost like, listen, man, this is why I want you to do it this way. Now, if you don't like doing it this way, tell me why you like doing it your way. Now, I can live with that, or I can't live with that, or at least if I can't, let's maybe how can we meet in the middle? But there are certain principles that you can't sacrifice. Like this is how a Portsmouth Trojans are going to conduct themselves.
Right.
In classroom, on the court, in practice, in the game. Right. This is how a Southwestern Jeep is going to conduct themselves. In the classroom, on the court. All these types of things. Now, those things are non-negotiables, right? But how we go about playing. The best coaches adapt to their teams.
Well, what you're alluding to now that the coaches have had to make this adjustment is when you take a kid out of a game now, he wants to know why.
Yeah.
Or for kids, or if you run a certain play and the play's not designed for him, they want to know. And so if you're not a coach that are really into explaining why, a lot of times there's that breakdown with that kid because you're not telling him why. Now, the thing about telling him why, sometimes kids don't want to hear the truth. And so it's that balance between, the reality, reality therapy, why did you take me out? Because I've watched you not get down in the stands the last 3 possessions. So you got to come. Or I throw the ball to you, and every time you get it, you shoot it and you don't pass it. There's your why. Now, a lot of times they don't want to hear that. But then if you're that way all the time, then they'll figure out real quick, okay, he's going to give me the why. Yeah. And so therefore, if I don't want the answer, and I better what he asked me to do because he's going to tell me why. Versus how we grew up. We grew up being coached hard. Our parents were hard. And that's just how life was. Well, now you can't be hard because everybody says now, well, hard's not a good thing. Kids don't relate to it now. Kids are a lot softer now. Well, kids are a lot softer now because the adults we have created that. And so therefore, it is what it is now because we've created that. And I mean, you see it as a principle. I mean, you're getting pressure from, the federal government saying, well, you can't do this, can't do that. And here's psychologically, here's the reasons why you can't. And I don't know if it's right or wrong. I mean, I don't think you take a kid and you beat him to death. But then at the same time, I think we're setting our kids up for failure when we don't give them tough love, because at some point they're going to get tough love if they're playing for, the High State Buckeyes or they're playing for Reds, and that guy comes in and says, hey, man, you're not getting it done. Here's your pink slip. Go home. Yeah,
absolutely. Hey, tough love is still love, right?
Yeah.
Brett, we played for Bill Newman.
Oh, man, I know.
Hard. But the thing I'll say about Bill Newman, he was firm, he was fair, but he was consistent.
Yep.
He was.
And I love Bill Newman to death, man.
Yeah.
And there was times when we played for him, we probably didn't like him very much. But when you get older, you appreciate guys like Sam McGraw, Bill Newman,
You're so right, Jeff. I look back at that now and I think about how fortunate I was to grow up. Sometimes I think about the how lucky, how fortunate these kids are today to have the training, the equipment. I mean, you can get in Portsmouth Gym, Southwestern Gym, probably anytime you want to shoot some basketball, right? Kids work on their game, You couldn't do that whenever we were kids. You couldn't get in Portsmouth Gym. You couldn't get in our gym. You had to go outside and do that stuff. I mean, the training, the knowledge of, physical training, weight training, agility drills. I mean, no one did that stuff whenever I was growing up. And so I wish I missed out on those things being young, but I would have missed out on, gosh, how to take a butt ripping and not take it personal. They're trying to get the best out of you.
Right.
Playing for Sam McGraw and Bill Newman and these were great men, knowledgeable men that knew the game and trying to help you and help you to grow. I mean, I felt like that, gosh, I'd like to take some of these opportunities today, but go back with some of the coaches I had back then. You know what I mean? And just really mesh that all together.
But I think, Brett, they also, what kids don't realize is a perfect example is Greg Smith. God, I love that guy to death.
Yeah.
And watching him prepare a scout report and watching film and all the energy and effort he would put into that. Yeah. Average kid don't see how much time those guys put in. And so they want you to give as much effort as they do at getting you prepared to play. And I think that's what kids lose out, or they get confused with, man, why is that so upset with me or so mad at me? Because he's just spent 20 hours preparing you for a game on Friday night on his own free for the love of you and for the love of the game. And when you just dismiss that closeout, or you dismiss that important play, means that much to a Greg Smith that he's gonna let you have it.
Yeah. That's right. Yes. I've studied this. I'm putting you in the best position to win, and you don't do it. Hey, Jeff, I know you can remember playing American Legion baseball, all those games as hot as it was, and Bill Newman would be dragging that infield dragging it, not with a lawnmower, literally strapping it over his shoulder with a rope and walking that entire infield. Dragging it with his body.
And he would be hitting fungos until his hands would bleed.
Yeah, he would.
And the tough love, but man, we still loved him. I don't care. He could yell at us, and we still love him. Great man.
He gave me one of the worst butt rippings I ever got. My dad still talks about it to this day. Every time we're somewhere, my dad he'll start talking about it. I was, Bill was a short little guy, and I was 6'5", 6'5" probably at the time, and we was playing at Hillsboro, and and you talk about, Jeff, talk about Bill. It didn't matter who you were or where you were from or what school you're from. He's going to put the best guy out there, right? That's just how he was. And it was my first year playing American Legion baseball. Man, we were really good. Had good guys around me and around on the team. And I could throw the ball hard. I had a good breaking ball, and I'd compete and I'd keep us in games. And I remember Bill had me. I was going to pitch a 9-inning game. Well, it was a 9-inning game, but I was scheduled to pitch. Was playing Hillsboro, first place team in the league. We were in second. And Jeff, I know you know this story, but we're playing. We get into about the 5th or 6th inning, and I'm throwing the ball really well. We finally scratch 2 runs across the plate. We're winning 2-1. I get in the 6th inning, and I strike out maybe the first 2 guys, I think, and next guy comes up and he hits a ground ball between my shortstop's legs. And I remember my shortstop, I don't want to call his name. He hit it right between his legs. He was a great player. He ended up playing at Wright State University. Great player. Went right between his legs. That would have been the 3rd out of the inning. Next guy comes up. I blow 2 fastballs by him. I've got no balls, 2 strikes on him. So I'm thinking, man, I got this guy set up. I'm going to throw him a hard curveball. I'm going to bounce it in the dirt. Well, I throw it. I hang this thing. And this guy, he crushes this ball. Man, we're playing at Hillsboro. Crushes it. He hits that ball all the way to the McDonald's, which is way out in left center field. Crushed that thing. I'm telling you, I was so mad. We were up 2-1. Now we're down 3-2. And before that guy could cross home plate, our dugout was on the third base side. Bill passed that guy coming to the pitcher's mound, and Bill stood on top of the mound so he could kind of get eye to eye with me. And I was standing on the bottom of the mound, and he yelled at me, or he talked to me like, "What are you doing, young man? You threw an 0-2 pitch, threw it for a strike." He goes, he just kept going on and on and on and on. I'm like, man, the longer he talked, the shorter I got. And I felt so bad. Just what a boneheaded pitch, and that guy hit it out, and we ended up losing that game, man, 3-2. We lost 3-2 on that. And I'll never forget that. I mean, just things you remember, man. I was probably 15 years old at that time. Yeah. Gosh, crazy. That's 16 years old. 16 years old.
But you still love him. You still
loved him. Oh, but still loved him. I didn't do it again.
Yeah.
I didn't do it again. But I'll never forget, man. Old Bill. Yeah, he let me have it. I deserve it though.
Well, he was teaching you a lesson. He taught you a lesson.
He was teaching me a lesson. Exactly right. Teaching me a lesson.
But Brett, we could talk for hours. We've done it many times.
Yep. Yeah.
Part of the reason I want to have this podcast is to share some of the stories that we've told in private, some of the lessons we've learned. You said something earlier about the kids today. They have access to all this strength training, nutrition, equipment.
Yep.
But the reason me and Gene put this journal together, all that stuff I'm cruising from the neck down.
Yeah. Yeah.
The difference maker.
Yep.
You've seen it. Gene has seen it. Is the neck up, the mindset, the mentality. And that's what we wanted to try to get out there. We have to put the time into that part of the game.
Yeah.
The neck down will get you in the door. It got you in the door at Morehead State. Yeah. But you had success because you figured it out from the neck up,
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think that's a part of the game we're kind of missing out on a little bit. And
it is, too, when I think about that, I had a lot of God-given ability, and I was able to have a lot of success just because of my physical attributes, right? And the more you play and the higher the level, you kind of take your physical talents maybe sometimes for granted, It's like, man, I can just show up and I can score 20 points, or I can, I know I'm going to throw the ball hard and I can throw the ball by guys. I'm going to strike guys out. But, the higher you go, the more, you start to play against guys, your ability, your talent level, and that's whenever the mental part of it really, really comes in. It's because, man, now I'm starting to face adversity. Maybe I'm starting to face failure for the first time.
Yep.
And, and sometimes, that is really, really a tough thing to handle. And I see it maybe more so a lot with kids from our area, because sometimes we think these kids and these parents think that, man, they're dominating the Southern Ohio Conference. And I don't want to say anything negative about the Southern Ohio Conference. A great league, right? Mm-hmm. But, is it great league compared to some of the leagues around Columbus? Cleveland, Philadelphia, New York, because if you're lucky enough to play and to progress into college or professionally, you're going to play against people from all over the United States, maybe all over the world.
Right.
And they all have success. I mean, the higher you go, you're playing against, the best. The last guy on the bench on a college basketball team was the best player on their team, their high school team somewhere, I mean, they were. The last guy on the bench was the best player on their high school team. And maybe the last player on an NBA bench was the best player on the college team, So these are all great players. And it's like figuring out how to handle adversity. Jeff, sometimes you can't have too much pride that you can't ask for help. I remember the first guy that I really thought I ever heard about having sports psychologists was really John Smoltz. You remember that?
Yep.
Talking about, man, that guy was a phenomenal pitcher for the Atlanta Braves. And then he started to struggle a little bit in his career, and all of a sudden he has a sports psychologist, and it kind of becomes almost
the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, he's a Hall of Fame pitcher. Yeah. But it almost becomes acceptable, I guess.
It's okay.
It's okay to question yourself a little bit, but how can you question yourself, but also overcome that and have the confidence to go out and perform at a high level? And and I know you've written a book about it, Gene. You're still coaching kids today. You talk about the mental aspect of just being able to have success, man. Whether you're successful on the court, success in the classroom, success in society, just as a person, just growing up. I mean, those are the things that now in my position, don't really, I'm not coaching, but I feel like I'm around kids all the time, and I'm just trying to figure out, man, how can I help kids to be ready for the game of life more than anything,
Mhm. Gene, you got anything you want to add and kind of get this closed out?
Brett, this has been great. I'm glad that we were able to get you on the show and tell your son I'm a big fan. I'm a big Eli fan, and great things are coming for him, man. His ceiling is so high. Just don't be so hard on himself. He don't have to be Brett. Just be Eli. He gonna be all right.
I know. I appreciate you saying that, Gene. Man, I've had a great time. It's great seeing you, Gene. I haven't seen you in a while. I haven't bumped into you, at least personally or physically like that, but haven't seen you. But I always love catching up with you whenever I run into you. And, gosh, I think maybe the last time I saw you was maybe at the baseball. You was up in Athens, wasn't you? Did you go to the baseball game up there? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Our softball team was playing that night. You guys were playing baseball. Got to talk to you a little bit up at Athens that night. And but I love talking to you. I love, shooting a breeze with you and picking your brain and
anytime.
But Eli's a good kid. I love watching him play. He is so much more athletic than what I was. He has a lot of God-given ability, and he really works hard. He is too hard on himself sometimes. You've talked about that, and so I it's your senior year, man. Every dad wants to see your child have a great senior year, and so hopefully he goes out and has a great year. And we have a great lot of success for our team, and so I'm happy. Have a lot of hopes, and I think he can do it. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I second that as far as Eli. Wish him the best, and I also believe he's going to have a great year, and excited to what his future holds. I just want to close. You mentioned the article that was in Sports Illustrated.
Yeah.
Great article. Had your picture in Sports Illustrated. Not too many people get to do that. That was an article, basically a contrast between guys that did things right and guys that probably did things wrong. And if you ever have a chance to read that article, I would encourage it. But the guys that made that decision to use steroids, and they got big league time, and you got to live that life, but almost all of them had problems in the future because of the regret, the guilt. Not to mention some of the health, effects that can go along with that. But I just want to say, Brett, when you did things with integrity, you're one of the finest human beings I've ever met. The community of South Webster is lucky to have you, as a role model. Obviously, you've been a great friend to me. You're one of my favorite people in the world. But you need to, hold your head up high, man. You did things the right way. You were a phenomenal teammate. And I just want to thank you for everything. You've been encouraged with me. I know you've always been in my corner. And I just thank you for joining us here tonight. A lot of good stories and some lessons you shared with us.
Yeah, man, I really appreciate you saying that, Jeff. It really means a lot to me. It really means a lot to me, man. It really does. You're a great guy. I mean, just getting to know you and be around you. Had a great time, man. I'm in your corner, man, no matter what. And I know you've always supported me, and you doing it, and just. I don't know, man. I've been very, very fortunate. I've been so fortunate to have good people in my life, have really good friends, people that I can count on, and try to do the things the right way, and really I've always tried to do the things the right way. And one of the things that really even kind of reinforced a little bit more about not doing the steroids and things like that is I had some old teammates through the Twins organization reach out to me after that article. And really thank me for that. And it's like, hey, man, thanks for doing it the right way. I really appreciate that. And just appreciate being able to play with you and be on the same team with you and watching you work as hard as you did and not do it. That meant a lot to me, man. Really meant a lot to me. And I don't know, been very, very lucky. And Jeff, I loved reading your book. I got your book still sits on my counter, man. It really does. And you've been a great friend, man, my whole life, and it's been an honor to be on here. I know you and Gene have been doing this now for a little while, and you've had some other guests, and I feel honored and privileged to be on here and get to talk about my history here a little bit and reminisce and tell some good stories. And we'll continue to tell good stories to each other when we see each other in person. But man, we had a blast. I had a blast. Had a great time.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, Brett, man, thanks for joining us, and I'm sure we'll talk soon.
Yep.
I know we don't get to talk as much as we used to, but man, I always enjoy it.
Me too. Me too, man. Me too.
All right, guys.
All right.
Thank you, and
All right.
we'll talk soon.
Yep. Gene, good luck, man.
All right.
All right. Have a great year, Jeff. I hope to see you soon. Man. All right. See you guys.
Yep. All right,
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Thanks a lot.